Hey, I'm Chris and welcome back to another Truck Talk. July the 25th, we're out here coming to you from number 18 of Oakridge. And at this stage in the project, it's easier for me to tell you really what we haven't completed rather than go through all the things we have completed. We're nearing the end of construction. We're excited about that. In the background, you see number 18 fairway here getting sprigged, which is an exciting milestone for us. This is the last fairway to get sprigs. All of the tees have been sprigged and completed. All of the tee surrounds have been sodded with the exception of number 15, which will be done early next week. And then so when we finish here, jumping right over the driving range, we'll get the driving range tee sprigged today, sodded around the range tee today or tomorrow. And then the body of the range we'll start tackling first part of next week. So that's what we got going on. And as we transition from construction to grow in, we've mentioned Tyson Helsel and his team start taking over that process. Tyson's going to join us today and give us a little insight into what that grow in looks like on the greens. So let's take you out and go start making our rounds. Okay, we're over here on the driving range tee. This is the work I was referencing earlier. This tee, just like the ones on the golf course, is getting laser leveled as well. Bill Bergen, being a former professional golfer at the highest level, has a very particular way he likes the driving range tee to be done, and that's pitched from front right to back left to give the best shot angles while you're practicing. So that's an interesting aspect of this tee. This will be sprigged later this afternoon, and then the areas around the tee on the slopes will be sodded, so this will be done by the end of the day. All right, here's a shot of number 1 fairway. I just want to show you this. 3 weeks old. This is what sprigged fairways look like at 3 weeks old. Tahoma Bermuda grass. Looking really good. If I pan around this way, you can see some of that storm damage we talked about last week. So again, part of our work will be to come back in the next 2 weeks and sod these areas where the water eroded away parts of these fairways. But overall, in the grand scheme of things, again, if I pan back this way, you can see, despite all the rains, we've made some really good progress in growing of these fairways. Number 1 green, so this is right at 7 weeks old. I know I told you last week I probably wouldn't show it to you again, but I kind of lied. We're pretty proud of how these things look. All right, we're out here at number 3, caught up with Tyson Helsel. I mentioned on number 1, you know, just how these greens are right at 7 weeks old and just looking fantastic. So Tyson, tell us a little bit about what got us to this point, you know, fertility wise. I'm assuming you're just going to Lowe's and buying a bag of 10, 10, 10 and coming out here and spreading it every couple of weeks, and that's about it, right?
Yeah, so we have a little mixed approach. We'll do the normal, your complete fertilizer, we like to say, and then we do have a little organic approach. Generally, we will treat these on a 6-week grow-in, which is granular, and we're looking at generally 1 to 2 pounds of nitrogen per week, right? So just as a comparison, in a given year on our open golf courses, we'll generally put out, you know, 3 pounds total for the entire year. So this is essentially, you know, we're placing 3 to 4 years of granular fertility on these greens in a matter of 6 weeks, right? So now we're at week 7. Granular is complete on numbers 1 through 7. So now we will switch to our foliar, which is what we apply weekly, kind of a routine. So analogy I like to use, the granular on a car, for instance, when you wash, the granular is the soap, right? We're getting everything to where we need. Now when we switch to the liquid, that is more of your wax. So that allows us to start fine tuning. We don't see discrepancies in growth where, you know, now it's just growing and growing and growing. Now it will start slowing down. We can start inching in some growth regulators, believe it or not, to help smooth it down. Again, everything's going vertical, and we're getting it moving lateral now. So we'll start vertical mowing this first set next week as well, and really just dialing in now over the next 8 weeks, getting these things, you know, manageable and playable for when we want to open. Obviously, you know, the remaining next seven holes after that, those are on that, you know, a couple week rotation.
So how about culturally, Tyson? I mean, what's your mowing look like? Are you doing anything like aerifying them to kind of get everything finished and grown in?
Yes and yes. So again, we're aerifying. It's a very disruptive. We have aerified 1 through 7 with an extremely small size tine. But that is really just smoothing out, you know, all the imperfections throughout the surface. That has been done. Again, now we're on a 5-day rotation on mowing these things. We still will take weekends off just to allow them to recover a little bit. But again, as you can tell, the frequencies are starting to get much more rapid as we move along this process.
Okay. And so we've got greens. The first set is 7 weeks old. We've got the middle set 5 weeks old, and the youngest set is
3 weeks.
3 weeks old. Okay. So 3, 5, and 7 weeks old on those. And then how about the fairways? I mentioned earlier we're sprigging our last fairway on 18 today, but how about the first ones? How are those
so
looking?
1 through 6 have been mowed. We've had 2 mows on those so far. And again, once we get that initial mow, this stuff really takes off. I know the last time we were out here, we were on 4 just across the street. Rapid improvement. I mean, 4 is 95% grown in. Besides the washes Chris talked about, last week, we have one in the background right here. So besides that, it's really filling in. So 2 times a week we're probably at, and then we'll start moving heights down. We're still pretty high. We're in that 3/4 range, 750 on a decimal. So upon opening, our target is, a 1/2 inch on fairways. Not too high, not too low, but enough to handle us throughout the winter months.
Awesome. Yeah, so we looked at number 1 just a minute ago in the video, and Tyson, that one's right at 3 weeks old, looking great. So what's the fertility like on the fairways in comparison to the greens?
So very similar to the greens. I would say not as frequent, but we're generally putting her out around 2 pounds of nitrogen per week on the fairways. So same concept as the greens. We'll place 3 to 5 years worth of fertilities into the fairways and tees, right? Over a 10-week span. It's quite remarkable. So we want this stuff to grow. We will get to a stage, and we're close, where we can't keep up with this, and that's a good sign, but we do have some products to help lower that and allow us to be more efficient.
Yeah, it's kind of like your car analogy earlier, right? You're hitting the accelerator as fast as it goes. You're like in a race car now, and then how do you get them to stop at the end of that time?
Right,
so,
exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
And that's one of the challenges.
Yeah.
So these greens, although they're 98% grown in at this point, they're 100% puttable, but they're probably rolling what?
They're slow.
6, 5.
Yeah, I can't get on the stip meter again, but they're probably
yet,
a 5. And again, it's just now we dial them in. It's the vertical mowings, the grooming, the brushing, the sand top dressing, everything that we can do internally. That's when we start getting them back to playable, which is our next goal. We all have 2 or 3 goals throughout the summer. We're getting close over here to really dialing in the green surfaces.
I got to imagine for Dave and you and your team that the logistics of having greens that are 99% grown in versus ones that are 25% grown in, and the same with fairways, the same with sod. Keeping all that, and what you're doing different things at different spots, that's got to be hard to keep track of all that, right?
It's definitely hectic. Equipment plays a big part into that. Our relationship with Beard has been very helpful with John Deere, but that's also the beauty of having 5 or 6 other golf courses where we can snag, because all of our mowing heights are different, don't forget. So it's it can be a blessing for the mechanics, but also a curse on having to change these things every couple weeks.
Makes sense. Well, it's exciting times. Thanks for joining us out here today, and look forward to seeing where it goes by next week.
Thank you.
All right, that's your tour for today. Hope you enjoyed it. Look forward to next week.